Hi, first graders. Today we are reading the story Chameleons Are Cool. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Chameleons are cool. Some lizards eat bananas. Chameleons don't. And some lizards walk upside down on the ceiling, but chameleons can't. And there's even a lizard that glides from tree to tree, and a chameleon certainly wouldn't do that. But of all the different kinds of lizards, I think chameleons are the best. Chameleons are cool. It's not that they are all that big. The biggest is only about the size of a small cat. It's called the Austerlitz chameleon and it lives in Madagascar. Whatever their size, chameleons usually get sick and die if they are kept as pets. They are much better off when they are left in the wild. They can also be really, really small, though. The smallest one could balance happily on your little finger. It's called the dwarf bruxia, and it lives in Madagascar too. So there's that little one. And I suppose you wouldn't exactly call many of them beautiful. Their skin is wrinkly and bumpy, and they've got big, bulgy eyes, while lots of them have the most ridiculous noses. I think it's their noses I like the best. Their mouths are pretty odd too. They turn down at the corners, which is why chameleons always look grumpy. Actually, they don't just look grumpy, they are grumpy. So if two chameleons bump into each other, things can get pretty lively. There's lots of puffing and hissing, and sometimes there's a real fight. And that's when chameleons do what they're most famous for, they change color. Lots of people think chameleons change color to match their surroundings, but they don't. That would be called camouflage, but they don't. They don't use it for camouflage. They change color when they are angry, when they're too cold, when they're too hot, or when they're sick. And there are some sorts of chameleons that hardly change colors at all. As a rule, though, chameleons don't bump into one another all that often. I suppose it would be fair to call them lazy, but they certainly don't move any more than they have to. And when they do, it's almost always incredibly slow. Sometimes they stop completely in mid step, as if they've forgotten what they're supposed to be doing. But if you look closely, you'll see that they're actually carefully peering about. Now, peering about is something chameleons are rather good at. That's because their eyes can move separately from each other, unlike our eyes, which are always moving together. So while one eye is looking back over the chameleon's shoulder, the other one is scanning a branch ahead. As soon as it spots something tasty, the chameleon fixes both eyes on its prey and begins to creep forward even more slowly than usual. Then it opens its mouth just a crack and out shoots its amazingly long tongue with a sticky tip at the end, like a piece of well chewed chewing gum. Then the tongue flies back, and there's a lot of chomping and chewing, and perhaps a few bites of insect legs fluttering to the ground. And after that, the chameleon just sits there for an hour or two, doing nothing very much at all, looking quite exhausted and still grumpy after all that hard work. And there you have it. How could you possibly resist a pocket sized, bad tempered, color changing, swirl eyed, snail paced, long tongued sharpshooter? If chameleons aren't cool, then I don't know what is. The end. And that is our story called Chameleons Are Cool.